Fellow students, with calculated intent, I address you today as fellow students. This has been your status for the last 4 years or more, and some of you may be looking forward to release from that bondage. I urge you to give the prospect a second thought. Although you are to graduate today and in a few moments will have your degrees, you should remain students and learners for the rest of your lives. If this university has not created within you a desire for a lifetime of learning for its own sake, it will have failed in one of its principal obligations. And beyond learning for its own sake, there is learning to avoid the threat of early obsolescence, a threat once reserved for machines, but now a threat to modern man himself. How could this danger come about? Professor Alfred North Whitehead, to whose writings I am so much indebted that I often fear that I may quote him unawares, has suggested the answer in pointing out that the life of a gentleman farmer in the days of the late Roman Republic, the 1st century BC, was not unlike the life of George Washington at Mount Vernon some 18 centuries later, near the beginning of our own republic. But sometime since Washington's death, sometime in the last 150 years, a new era dawned, an era of accelerating change. Today, the one most certain thing in your lives is that you will not live in the kind of world in which your fathers and grandfathers lived. Indeed, very soon, you will not be living in the same world in which you are living today, any more than I am living in the primitive world of my youth. Only a lifetime of learning can keep you up to date. Therefore, let today be a true commencement for both of us, a commencement in every sense of the word. For commencement is a day both of endings and of beginnings. On such a day, there is always a temptation to review the past. There is a temptation today for me particularly to remind you that this university has had 81 commencements in my presidency, of which I have participated in 78. That in 19 different commencements, including this one, I have given the commencement address. And if this is not a good one, you will realize that I ran dry too soon. That at the conclusion of this ceremony I shall have conferred, by the best count obtainable, 48,898 degrees, more than one half of the 90,884 degrees conferred by this university since its founding. That on July 1, 1964, I shall have been president of this university for 23 years and 8 months, the longest presidential tenure in its history. That at this moment it seems that no other president will exceed my length of tenure before the 21st century, if indeed it is ever exceeded. That SUI's student enrollment has almost doubled in my presidency, having grown from 6,667 students in the autumn of 1940 to 12,923 students in the fall of 1963. That SUI's facilities have grown apace both in size and faculties have grown apace both in size and distinction. That SUI's appropriations for educational purposes have increased sevenfold, thus indicating the growth in complexity, and I underscore complexity, as well as size, of the modern fields of learning. That there are under construction or in the active planning stage on this campus capital construction projects having an estimated total cost of slightly more than $30 million. And that many, very many of our needs are still unmet. All this could be elaborated at great length, but the details are elsewhere for those who are interested. On the other hand, there is an almost equal temptation on such a day to project the future. Having witnessed dramatic changes in my own lifetime, quite literally from the horse and buggy days to the jet and satellite age, I find the temptation very difficult to resist. But when I recall how little of the present day could have been foreseen or foretold by my own commencement orator on this campus in 1918, during the lowest ebb tide of World War I, the temptation to prophesy somehow seems less beguiling. Not being the seventh son of a seventh son, I can lay no claim to prophecy. Therefore, I should like to speak to you in these remaining minutes about things that should remain constant even in a world of material change. Some years ago, on the eve of the space age, a Colonel Stapp made himself a guinea pig for experimentation with the effects of rapidly accelerating and decelerating speeds upon his own body. When asked why he ran the risk to his body involved in his unusual experiments, he is said to have answered that the human body comes principally in 2 shapes and 3 colors, and that experiments upon it are likely to have validity for many years to come. What I wish to talk about this morning has even more validity than the experimentation of Colonel Stapp. For I am not so much concerned about the environment in which you will live as I am about how you will live in your environment. I am not so much concerned about the environment, what the environment can do to you, as I am about what you can do to the environment. In other words, I am concerned about you, about each one of you as the most precious thing in the world, a vital, intelligent, responsible, purposeful human being. I am not concerned with you as a passive object in the stream of history, but as an actor, a doer, an achiever who helps control and direct the stream of history. In these days of quantitative thinking, it is very easy to reduce the individual to a statistic. For actuarial purposes, this may be a useful device, but it has no value for you or me in the building of a curriculum vitae, in determining what you or I as a separate and distinct individual are or may become. I said a moment ago that I would like you to be students for the rest of your lives. This is true in many senses of those words, but in a special sense, I would like you to be students of yourselves, of your potential, students of that greatest of undertakings, the building of a great human life. In doing so, it is not enough for you to pick up stray bits of information as you have wandered through your college years. You will need more than that. And here I quote from the opening paragraphs of Whitehead's Aims of Education, which he says, "Culture is activity of thought and receptiveness to beauty and humane feeling. Scraps of information have nothing to do with it. A merely well-informed man is the most useless bore on God's earth. What we should aim at producing is men who possess both culture and expert knowledge in some special direction. Their expert knowledge will give them the ground to start from, and their culture will lead them as deep as philosophy and as high as art." As you are aware, university faculties will agree on the value and necessity of education, but they can disagree most violently concerning the means of achieving it and the knowledge which must be possessed by the educated man. The answer is, I believe that there is no single royal road to learning and no single subject that a man must master in order to be an educated man. Those who insist, for example, that a knowledge of Shakespeare is an absolute prerequisite to the status of an educated man are saying, in effect, that there never was an educated man in the long centuries before Shakespeare. This, of course, is nonsense. however desirable it is to know Shakespeare, and I share this with everyone else now that he is a part of our heritage. On the other hand, there are certain qualities and characteristics which hopefully you as graduates will possess as you progress toward the goal of a perfected life. You certainly will have a need of a lively and disciplined intelligence. It is one of the teachings of the Church of the Latter-day Saints that the glory of God is intelligence. What a magnificent conception that is. I can think of churches whose credibility and conduct could be improved by placing these words high in their essential teachings. I hope that these words, the glory of God is intelligence, can be engraved on your memory and become a part of your life. A lively and disciplined intelligence will discern beauty and power, loveliness and order in the universe, and will bring them to recognition and appreciation. It will encompass the whole of life and will reject nothing good that this universe has to offer. And it will resist a superficial acceptance of that which requires a mastery in depth for its understanding. Education, therefore, is more than the memorization and recall of information, however useful these may be. It is more than a training in computer services. Rather, education, as Whitehead has pointed out, is the acquisition of the art of the utilization of knowledge. Some years ago, a member of our faculty was appointed to a committee composed mostly of laymen engaged in the study of a public question. Two things about his colleagues on the committee shocked him: their lack of knowledge of the existence of facts and data relevant to their study, and their inability to assemble and utilize the relevant facts and data once they had been discovered. This art of the utilization of knowledge is essential to the mastery of your own area of expertness. In addition, it may well be the means by which you can play an effective role with your friends and neighbors, in your community, your church, your profession or business, or even your state or nation. Jowett, the great English tutor and mentor of future statesmen, used to refer to the power that comes from steady working. There may be an occasional genius who achieves his insights without effort, but wise men know that the insight which seems to come effortlessly usually does not come until the calm after the great effort has been expended. Even the rewards of serendipity come chiefly to those who, by their intelligent efforts, have created a climate of receptivity and understanding. Never underestimate the power that comes from steady working. As William James points out, if you faithfully perform the daily task that come to you, you can build up within you such power of work and decision that you may awake one day to find yourself one of the competent ones of your generation. From a lively and disciplined intelligence and the power that comes from steady working, there flows the capacity to influence events. To you, much has been given. From you, much may be expected. It was said of Jowett, to whom I referred a moment ago, that one of the central articles of his belief was that want of worldly success is no necessary index of spiritual distinction, that rational ambition is a merit and not a stigma, and that the intellectual flower of the nation should direct its destinies. He could never understand how an intelligent man should not desire the capacity to influence events. The bigger the events, the better, or fail to rejoice in this exercise. If you are not to influence events, to whom should that responsibility be assigned? Too often our people feel that current events and movements are the result of impersonal forces far removed from them? Are not we of the Middle West too prone to wait on others in New York or Washington or elsewhere to take the lead in great events? This is unfortunate. This university has been a pioneer in many fields of human learning. Why should not you, its graduates, be pioneers and leaders? But I would not have you be pioneers and leaders without that which Whitehead calls the habitual vision of greatness, an indispensable element in moral education. If you are to exercise power, it must be restrained by moral considerations, lest your power be exercised with all the wickedness of a Hitler or a Stalin. The Old Testament book of Proverbs says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." The vision I crave for you is a vision that will be the hope and salvation of your people, that habitual vision of greatness indispensable to the creation of great souls and of a great society. Do not be put off by the occasional lack of vision of those with whom your lot may be cast. You will be saddened, as I have been saddened from time to time, by the sight of small men handling large affairs in a small way. You must possess the vision even when others fail you. Be concerned that when opportunities for service come to you, whether they be large or small, you approach them with the habitual vision of greatness. Has it ever occurred to you that this university might become the greatest university in the world? If not, why not? Must the distinction always be reserved for Oxford or Cambridge, or Harvard or Berkeley, and never for Iowa? Must this state, with its small population and limited wealth, look beyond its borders for greatness? Athens, with fewer people and less wealth, left its lasting imprint on the world. So did Alexandria, so did Florence. It was not their size and wealth that made them great. It was the vision of their people. This is the kind of vision that I crave for you. May you possess it today, and may it last as long as life itself. Today we, both you and I, stand at the threshold of a great adventure. Much of your life is before you, much of mine is past. But I like to believe that the world always beckons to the young in heart. And if that be true, my heart tells me that I can join you in hope and courage as we face the uncertain future. To you who are young in years, and I hope young in heart and spirit, I offer my felicitations. I salute you, one and all. Hail and farewell.
You have been listening to the principal address at the June 1964 commencement exercises at the University of Iowa. The speaker was Dr. Virgil Hancher, president of the university, participating in his 79th University of Iowa commencement. You can tell by the applause the great appreciation felt by the members of this audience and of the graduating classes. Now the graduating class is standing, and the members of the audience are standing, and the platform officials are standing in tribute to President Hancher. President Hancher has risen at his seat on the stage to acknowledge the applause of the audience.